Welcome back, everybody, to the Quickstart Guide for Recovery from Addiction and Co-Occurring Disorders. In this unit, we're going to continue talking about vulnerabilities, but today we're going to talk about affective vulnerability awareness and prevention. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn-Elise Snipes. What are affective vulnerabilities? Well, you've learned already that vulnerabilities are things that make us more likely to react with an extreme reaction to things that happen. So affective vulnerabilities are basically moods that we're in that make us more likely to react with a stronger mood. Emotions are rarely one-dimensional. Think about when you have been angry or anxious or depressed. A lot of times you have other feelings around that. So, for example, you may wake up in the morning and feel depressed, and you feel guilty about not having energy and being able to do stuff with your kids because you're depressed. And then you get angry about the fact that you always feel like you're depressed. And then you start feeling anxious that people will reject you because you're depressed. So you can be feeling all of those feelings at the same time, which is extremely exhausting. When you experience distress, it's important to remember that means your body is activating the HPA axis, the threat response system, and it's putting you on high alert. So you're going to be hypervigilant. That is, you're going to be scanning and more likely to notice stressful things in your environment. So you are stressed and you notice more stressful things. Guess what that's going to do to your mood? It's going to intensify your reaction and potentially make you feel more vulnerable to feeling overwhelmed and experience strong emotions like anxiety, anger, or even just depression where you're like, I give up. You've already explored how things like exhaustion, hunger, pain, and hormone imbalances can contribute to feelings of anxiety, anger, and depression. There are a lot of physiological things that can contribute to your emotional symptoms. And it's important to prevent those vulnerabilities as much as possible too. But it's also important to recognize how your moods impact your moods. So spend about 30 minutes exploring how your moods impact your perception of and reaction to things. So think about a time in the past month that you were happy. How did that impact your perception of things that happened? If something went wrong and you were already happy, did it feel like the world was crashing down, or was it an annoyance? Whereas maybe when you were angry, you were already in a distress state and that same thing happened. How did you react? Was it still not a big deal, or did it feel like, the roof was crashing down on you? And when you were depressed. So think back to 3 times in the past month, one when you were happy, one when you were angry, and one when you were depressed, and explore how those different moods impact how you perceive things that happen and how you react to things that happen, especially how you react to unpleasant things that happen. Once you've done that, then think about a time that in the past month when you overreacted to something. You got all upset about something and looked back on it later and said, you know what? I kind of overreacted. What was your mood prior to that event? My guess is it was either angry, depressed, or anxious, but I could be wrong. So think really looking back at and starting to become aware of how your moods impact your moods. Now you're going to spend about 15 minutes on each of these different feelings. What feelings commonly occur when you're experiencing grief? And how does that set you up for more distress? Maybe when you're feeling grief about something, you're grieving something, it reminds you of all the other things that you are powerless over or that you've lost. So then you start feeling depressed too. I don't know how you react when you're feeling grief, but being aware of what feelings commonly occur with grief and how, when you're grieving, that impacts you, your reactions and your perceptions is really important. And then Identify 3 strategies that you can use to help you be aware of grief and cope with it. I'm not saying avoid it. I'm not saying eliminate it. I'm saying cope with it. Do the same thing for depression, anger, and anxiety. That will start giving you a list of tools that you can use when you wake up in the morning and you're, feeling angry, you're feeling cranky, or something happens during the day and you start feeling depressed. You notice that, and then you have at least 3 things identified already, 3 ways that you can start dealing with that depression so it doesn't create a cascade effect. Your affect or your emotions are like lenses through which you see the world. When I was growing up, my mother sometimes would tell me to put on my rose-colored glasses in order to encourage me to look at the bright side of things. Well, we can also have distress-colored glasses. And when we're in a mood, whatever mood that is, it is going to affect what you pay attention to. When you're in a distressful mood, it can make you more prone to notice stressful things in the environment, which will potentially worsen your mood or make you feel more powerless. And that's one of those things that we really struggle with a lot, is that accepting powerlessness, recognizing that there are some things that we cannot change. But it's important to remember that your emotions, even the unpleasant ones, serve a purpose. Anger and anxiety, they're part of fight or flee. They're designed to protect you from harm. We don't want them to go away completely, but we also don't want them to completely shade how we perceive most everything in life, henceforth and forevermore. We want to be able to recognize that and prevent our anger about something over here from necessarily permeating our perception of everything else in life. It's important to learn how to be mindful of your feelings, to be aware of how you're feeling on any given moment, and notice, preferably early, hey, I'm starting to feel angry or I'm starting to feel depressed, so you can cope with it as best as possible and prevent it from causing you more problems in the long run, prevent it from becoming a vulnerability. So for example, when I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling particularly irritable and grouchy, I know that for me, I need to take a step back and evaluate the facts about, whatever I'm feeling grouchy about. What are the facts? And I also need to engage in a gratitude activity to force myself to look at the positive. When I'm in that negative frame of mind, I really tend to focus on all the things that are going wrong. So for me, a helpful tool is to do a gratitude list to focus on what is going right for 5 minutes or so. So I'm balancing out the distress with the good stuff.